And now, Gumption TV proudly presents Urban Explorations with your host, Wendell T. Wallaby. I'm your host, Wendell T. Wallaby. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I actually figured it would be appropriate to do a little bit of a voiceover as I do this walkthrough. As you can see, I am at this time walking impaired. I'm walking with a cane, so this entire endeavour is not the easiest. And I've already kind of gotten past the tricky part of getting in. That was the front gate. Up there's where we used to have lunch sometimes. And that doorway, I'm not really sure what it's doing there, because the other side is private property, and the owners of both sides of the property on both sides of this camp never really liked the place, especially during the summer. It made a lot of noise. This is the parking lot where I actually had probably the most frightening experience that was not supernatural. This is where I had to run in with a moose, actually. Put my fishing poles down. Now, of course, the condition of the buildings, the inside and out, is definitely not how it was when I was a child. As you can see, a lot of the important things have been removed, but a lot of things you wouldn't really want to throw away. I noticed, stuff that a hoarder might want to keep, but obviously not useful enough for them to have taken with them. Last time I was here, probably a few months ago, everything was still locked up, so you couldn't actually get in to any of these rooms. Although, like I said, nothing terribly useful. It was just kind of interesting to be able to actually go through all these rooms, just see what was left behind still. Could at least nab the air conditioner, right? Huh. One more room. I actually went back only a few weeks later and went through these rooms once more. All the stuff you're seeing was gone. So, at least somebody had some sort of use for it. And it appears that somebody's at least coming in and out of there to do some kind of upkeep. I'm not sure still what's going on with the property itself. I'll have to look further into it, but I think that it's just going to belong to the city nearest by. And I would assume they probably just turn it into bloody housing. Right where we just were at is where they had this large tree house. Well, it wasn't exactly a tree house because it wasn't in a tree. They later built a mine shaft around it. Well, a wannabe mine shaft, a little maze. Had a little fireman's pole that went down there, and when I worked here, we'd hide around the corner and scare the kids. I'd tell them that there was some kind of a monster or a dragon down there, and with my incredible acting skills, it wasn't hard to convince them all. I was actually just scuffling with a big bag of sand. Right here, where we're seeing is where the Hogan used to be. If you heard the story of when we heard the scream from across the way, this structure wasn't there at the time. This wasn't there when I was working some kind of a ropes course. It appears that they moved the ceremonial area up to this area of the field. They used to do it much closer to that, the structures that we were at before, the trading post and all that, closer to the front gate. So this is this red caboose. You can see, well, not right now, but we were on this side of the caboose and looking across where we were just at is where we heard the scream from off in the night. I mean, my cousin and, well, two cousins and two friends were camping just off to the side of this caboose. Two of us were already inside, asleep, and the three of us were next to the fire, and that's when we heard that strange sound. We came in here and sought really the only safety or shelter we could find. As you can see, it's a little trashed. When I very first came here as a kid, they actually had one of those very small model train sets inside this train. And then there was another year that you didn't even go inside. And they just played this bloody anti-drug cartoon. It was fun. Fun for the kids, I'm sure. You just get to look at the caboose and watch a silly cartoon about not doing drugs. That's where they did the slingshots, the Chrypst rockets. And we pretended to be Tom and Huck. This amphitheater used to be constructed mostly of wooden pallets until they came in and filled it in with concrete. This was actually one of the scenes of the notorious Delphic Quorum music video for The Thief, which won an award for bringing our friend Diego Campos to tears in such a compelling manner that, well, he gave us an award for it. Let's see. Here it is. You can't see it, but you can hear it. And this was the area during that same story when we heard the scream in the night where we were getting the firewood from. And on our way back, where our buddy stopped us on our way across the bridge. And didn't feel comfortable being alone by the fire as the notion of skinwalkers had just crossed his mind. Which, now I've definitely been back to this camp during the night time and sat there talking about skinwalkers for extended periods of time. Made it out of the camp with no problems. So, of course, these tales, many of them happened over 15 years ago. And perhaps the place has lost its spark. Who knows? Definitely been back more times than I can count. Both legally and, I hate to say it, but illegally. Right now I definitely don't have a key to the gate. I don't think you can get the key to the gate anymore, unfortunately. That's usually the trail I take to get up here. So, in the podcast, in the video with of the KWJUDAS, where I'm telling the stories of what happened here, when you're watching this video, there's no voiceover. I just figured I'd do this voiceover for just for this separate video by itself. But in that, I haven't actually revealed what happened at this very spot where I'm at right now. This is what we called the waterfront. This is the upper pond, which especially at the time was where we considered to be sort of the hot spot. That little area where I just passed was where I witnessed not just one but two possessions. We've got a little dead waterfowl. Not sure what kind of a bird that is, but it's dead as fuck. Kinda pretty. This pond's also not usually flowing over. It's obviously clogged at the end. Seems like it. There was actually another reason for taking this video, was to just kind of show the changes of the land and the plant life and trees and everything, because this place really does seem to metamorphosize quite a bit almost every time I come here. So this, where you're looking across the other side of the pond, not quite as far as that little red shack. That trail was where we saw the figure that I was talking about, that we only caught on tape, and we were not able to get the tape, unfortunately. If I ever do, trust me, it will be posted on this channel. But it was the other side of that pond where we saw that figure, the humanoid-like figure, on the tape after we went home and watched it. That huge tree Also, definitely not usually there. This whole thing was quite a feat for walking impaired individual like myself, but we still tracked onward. Here's the lower pond. I did mention that I had some strange dreams about this place. Many, many strange dreams, and I still do. But during the time that all the craziness was happening, one of the dreams that stood out to me the most was of the construction of these ponds that I was witnessing. As you can see, these are most likely man-made ponds. I mean, just to the shape of them, it just looks like they kind of just piled up a bunch of dirt and two large ovular formations and filled them up with water. But I was watching them do it before they were filled with water in this dream. And in those mounds of dirt, I could see bodies, human bodies, being packed into the dirt with the tractors. Right there, that hill was actually where I was watching them do it. And they were just pushing these bodies with the dirt into the formations of these ponds. I had another dream where I was walking past the upper pond, and I somehow knew that there were bodies packed down into the moss, down underneath the moss at the bottom of the pond. There was another one that I can definitely remember. It stuck out during the time of all these happenings. And the third one was also back up at the front pond, the top pond, where my sister and my brother and I, the three eldest of our family, we were all standing there at the dock, looking down into the water. And all of a sudden, a body bag came floating up from the bottom of the pond. And the body bag opened up once it reached the surface of the water. And once it opened up, a gigantic book, probably 6 to 8 feet across, also came up out of the body bag, and it also opened up once it reached the surface. And I couldn't really read what anything it said, probably because the pages were wet and the ink was... Well, I've also been told you're not supposed to be able to read while you're in dreaming mind state, because I suppose the part of your brain that's able to read isn't quite active, or at least not acting properly, which I think's horseshit, because I've tested it many times in dreams and knew I was dreaming and knew I could read. But that's aside from the point. In this dream, when the book came up, once it reached the surface, both my brother and my sister immediately began screaming the words "psycho policeman" over and over and over, and began running around the camp, hysterically screaming those two words over and over, and thus then the dream was over. No idea any significance of those words. And we've also tried, not just myself, but many people who've heard these stories or have been involved with these stories, have all tried digging up whatever dirt they can, but to no avail. The best we've been able to find was the legacy of Jeremiah Liver-Eating Johnson, who, if you look him up, it's a fun tale of a man who obviously was known for eating people's livers. He was a mountain man who fought in the wars, and who fought mostly against Native Americans because they killed his wife, so he sought vengeance, and would eat the livers of every victim of his, because according to their own folklore, their own beliefs, it denied them passage into the spirit world or into their heaven or their Shangri-La. And so it was just kind of a way of just adding much more spite to the kill. He doesn't just kill him in this life, he kills him in the afterlife. There's even a bloody monument of Jeremiah Liver-Eating Johnson. I think there's a statue and everything. Now, I don't know if he ever had anything to do with this particular location. He was all over the western United States, not just here in Utah. But I definitely have good reason to believe that this place was named after him, at least. This gateway used to have two little hideouts, little towers there on both sides, as you can see. And there was another slightly less supernatural or paranormal, a little less scary story that I believe I left out, a quick one. But a night that was also me, the same friend, and I believe the same cousin, one of the same friends, the same two people that were at the fireplace at that very caboose that we're looking at right now for the experience where we heard the scream in the night. I believe it was them who were with me on this one too. We were sleeping up in that tower off to the left, the tower that's not there now. And I believe the two of them were already passed out, and all of a sudden there was a strange light that at first I would have thought would have been like a car having driven into the parking lot and turned around, so the headlights would have just swept across. And they were not at ground level, they were in the sky. It was at the same level of the towers we were at. So, and of course there was no way for anyone to have come in because the gates were locked. Anyways, there's still more, so stay tuned. Ta-ta.